1. I was 6 years old when I had my first paranormal experience, and I don't remember it, but my mother does. At that time, every other week she would take me with her to this kindergarten convent school where she worked as a substitute teacher, so I was the same age as the kids there. The school was surrounded by nature, not that much, but I lived in an apartment, so a forest is what my child's eyes were seeing. But the fence kept the children away from it. Also, behind the school there was a mix between a small forest and an orchard that was about the size of a soccer field. The only way to get there was through the building and through the administration wing, where you could find most of the staff school workrooms, like the principals, administrators, coordinators, and so on. All of their rooms were the same, desk facing the door, which had huge windows at both sides of it that almost reached the floor. The curtains were always open unless there were parents there to talk to someone, usually the principal. That means that if anyone walked past that corridor, even someone as small as the kids there, they would be easily seen by anyone and everyone. So back to me. I'd happily play alone, exploring every corner of the school while my mother was working. My favorite place was the orchard forest spot I mentioned above. That's what I called it as a kid. I used to stay hours there, playing happily by myself, pretending to be an explorer and eating some small fruits. Not much, because the school would add them to the kids' breakfast, and the kids would hate me if I ate most of the fruits. They loved them as much as I did. One day, around lunchtime, I went to meet my mother in the cafeteria. After we ate, I turned to her and said that I didn't want to play at the orchard forest anymore, because the trees were talking to me and I didn't like it. Well, at least that's what my mom had told me a couple of years ago, but she hadn't told me the whole truth. She doesn't like to remember that day, and because of that, when I asked about that school and that orchard forest a couple of years later because of a school assignment, she only told me that much. Then another couple of years later, another paranormal thing happened to me that made her decide to tell me the whole truth about what had happened at that convent school. According to her, what I had actually said that day was, "Mom, I don't want to play there anymore. There's a tree smiling at me and another one that's crying. The tree said I shouldn't walk there because there is a pool close by and I could fall down into it and drown." My mother told me I kept telling her more, but she got so nervous that she just froze in fear and stopped listening to me. She had some bad paranormal experiences when she was a young adult. A few days later, Mom asked one of the nuns if the school has a pool somewhere. The nun looked at her with surprise and told her that they had a pool about 10 years ago, where the orchard forest is located now. They had the pool removed because of what had happened. One day a young boy who was 6 years old managed to sneak out of his classroom. Somehow no one saw that kid walking all the way through the school. He didn't know how to swim but loved to play in the pool with his classmates on swimming days, while the teacher and someone else, there wasn't a specific person to help the teachers who took the kids to the pool, they would get whoever was available, would watch them. The children always used floaties before getting in the pool, but that boy wouldn't be able to use his arm floaties since all the swimming stuff was locked in another room. The little boy was playing by the pool when he accidentally tripped and fell into it, drowning. The nun said that it was a very traumatic experience for everyone, so the school decided to have the pool removed, and no one talked about that tragic day anymore. The news didn't talk much about it either. She asked my mom how she found out about the pool, and my mom got pale and nervous all over again. She lied and told the nun she had a dream about it, and they both ended the conversation there. Now, it would be creepy enough to only be hearing voices telling me to watch out for the pool, but seeing a smiling tree and a crying tree and hearing them warn me about a pool that wasn't even there anymore since 10 years prior, not to mention, they specifically warned me about drowning. Just imagining myself telling this gives me goosebumps. My mother told me I would never say something so weird like that unless it was the truth. Is there any culture who mentions smiling or crying trees? That's the craziest part for me, and I've never heard of anything similar. 2. I've randomly been thinking about this experience a lot and realized there's a whole community I can ask about it. For a little bit of background, this was at my family home when I was a teenager in rural Indiana. I had already had other insanely weird, ghostly experiences at this house and property, and I am into all the weird and unknown. although this experience actually gets me panicked anytime I think about it. I was walking my puppy Apollo by the wood line at night. We had a big yard, so obviously he had no leash on. This tree line led to huge woods as well. It was pitch black, and I usually am always paranoid in the dark, but I felt insanely weird that night. It really felt like something was watching me, like the physical reaction your body gets to it, like being stalked. I soon realized maybe I was more than paranoid and started to walk back down the gravel road back home, which was a bit away. We lived in an area where people would be caught hiding in the woods from the cops. It was really a meth head area, so I wasn't taking any chances. Well, I took only a couple of steps back when I heard this giant thunk around it. It legitimately sounded like someone dropped a bag of bricks from up high. The sound came from inside the woods and sounded like it was parallel to me. I had my dog with me, so I was going to yell, "He effing bites!" assuming it would be another guy on the run, but before I said anything, this tall, I believe 7 feet figure comes out of the tree line. It had sickly, white, pale skin and was completely starved. I could see his bones poking out of the cloth it wore around its waist. Human-like body with our hands and feet but lanky limbs. And an abnormally wide chest. The face was genuinely the worst and most confusing part. Imagine a deer skull without antlers. Yeah, kinda like that, but much wider and fatter on the front-facing part. No indentations for nostrils either. It was just flat and smooth. Although, unlike a skull, it was covered in the same sickly pale white skin. It had 2 sets of eyes, and it looked to be no mouth. It wore some sort of wooden headgear I couldn't take time to comprehend. No ears, but had short tangled hair on the back of its head. The look I exchanged with this creature was short, but it haunts me. The most insane part to me is that it almost looked terrified of me as well. It looked surprised and even froze in place as we just looked at each other. It didn't reach out to me, just looked at me. The eyes were pitch black like an animal's eyes. Really, it was like a deer in the headlights. My dog, being smart, immediately ran and waited for me at the foot of our porch until I snapped out of it and ran too. I can't say I blame the little dude for leaving me either. At least he waited. I looked back while running and see the figure fade back into the woods. Fast forward a week later, and I started getting knocking and scratching at my bedroom window every single damn night. My window was up high too, at least 8 feet from the ground. This went on for a week until I asked my friend who lived next to me to go outside and tell me what they see. While I was on the phone with them, hearing the scratching against my window, they said they saw nothing. They thought I was the one scratching and was messing with them, but I wish I was. This went on for months after, while I had awful nightmares, all while it happened. Eventually they stopped, and my dreams became less apocalyptic. I wonder, was this a Wendigo? I didn't think they would be afraid of humans or look like that. Is it something entirely different? Please, I've been sitting on this for years. Tell me what you think. 3. This story is absolutely legendary amongst my family, so I thought I'd share it online. When I was a kid, I can't remember what age I was, but me and my 2 older sisters, my parents, and my aunt all moved into a big 8-bedroom suburban 2-story house with a pool, wine bar, and everything fancy in between, like a laundry chute. It was a great place to live for a big family like us. My aunt got the majority of the top floor since she officially owned the house, and understandably got first pick, except for 1 bedroom which my sister took while the rest of us were living downstairs. The stereotypical lifestyle plays out throughout the years with a busy family pool parties and barbecues, sitting around a winter fire barrel exchanging ghost stories that I always tune out due to initially sounding like boring BS that people spread around campfires, dogs running around causing chaos and leaving fleas and dog crap everywhere, and cats just sitting around, loitering all day, very adorably. We lived there for about 10 years, and throughout the years my sisters both grew up, got boyfriends, or eventually moved out. Then I graduated from high school. and we decided to finally move out since it was time to move on and downsize. Soon, the day of the move, my aunt had already moved out at this point, so it was just me and my parents with some helping hand friends, and while my family was loading the moving truck, a fart machine I got my dad for Father's Day a couple of months prior had just started going off on its own. We checked both controllers and nobody had touched them. In fact, nobody knew it was there, since we were all busy with the move, and we all stood there staring at it go off a few times, completely speechless, not knowing how to react. I hesitantly laughed it off, joking that this house was haunted, and soon after that I went upstairs to check if we had left anything behind, before we finally left for the new house. And lo and behold, I saw a reflection in the bedroom window, standing next to my reflection of a child, who was the spitting image of myself, but he was soaked like he was just swimming in the pool, wearing a kid's black and blue swimmer's t-shirt, and I'd presumed he was wearing blue swim shorts with a bowl haircut, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. He just stood there innocently smiling and waving goodbye before fading away and disappearing. I couldn't help but wave back and whisper, "Goodbye, little dude." Then I proceeded to hastily leave the house, pretending that it didn't happen as me and my family finally moved on to a new chapter in our lives. Lately, I've asked my sisters about the fart box situation, and laughed and said, "Bro, that place was haunted for years and you never even noticed. We kept on seeing you in the house when you were at your friend's place. Auntie Sally saw you standing at the end of her bed, staring at her in the middle of the night. And we all saw you during various occasions just standing by the poolside, staring at us throughout the years." Then my sister went over the history of the house. She and my other sister both looked up all those years ago, and found out that it's because a kid who looked like me drowned in that pool about a few decades before we moved in. So they had realized that the house was low-key haunted, and the entire time these hauntings were happening, I was completely, obliviously unaware of the whole situation. I personally never experienced any hauntings until that last day, so I figured that I looked so much like him, he saw fit to leave me alone, or have my back by haunting my sisters whenever they were being the stereotypical annoying siblings. So in conclusion, I had a ghost bunkmate who looked and acted like my unofficial twin brother that I never had. I heard a lot of ghost stories about hauntings being bad, but sometimes it's just a true blessing in disguise. I hope that kid has happily moved on into the afterlife by now, or is just having a blast, haunting the crap out of his new roommates. If he has moved on, may he finally rest in peace. 4. So this story is approximately 10 to 12 years old, and it happened in Ukraine. When I was 18, just fresh out of school, I had a whole summer in front of me to do whatever I want before starting at university. Through our PE teacher, I got an offer to make some extra money during summer, and I happily agreed. The job was being a counselor at a children's camp for the summer, watch over them, organizational tasks, hiking, etc. It was my first job, and I was happy to make money for myself. Also, me being 18 and receiving the oldest group, between 15 and 16 years old, was a huge bonus to it. I was young enough to understand them, but old enough to be respected and listened to. The first shift was mild. Not many things were happening. We were getting used to the job and the kids. So the occasional, I saw someone staring at us from the forest, complaining from the kids, was not taken too seriously. We just thought they were having a hard time getting used to the territory, because most of them were city kids, and unlike growing up in the region, they had no idea how active the forest gets during the evening and nighttime. We thought they were scared of some of the animals that were coming too close to the territory. Now about the territory itself, it was huge. When you entered through the gate, you could go left or right. On the right was the warehouse in the end of the territory, approximately 10 minutes of walking. Also, on the right was the canteen, where we were having our meals, and the football field. Nothing ever happened on the right side, or even if it did, we could never make it out, for reasons I will add later. If you turned to the left after the entrance, you could see buildings where we and the kids lived. As you turned left, you immediately could see a building where the girls were. And in the middle was a building for the really small groups under 8 years old, and on the end was the building for the boys. The 3 buildings formed a U-shape, with a little garden in the middle. So there's enough space to gather and organize the 150 kids in the morning for breakfast. If you would try to just walk forward from the entrance after 100 meters, you would be met with a 2-meter fence and a dense mountain forest that goes up the hill. Now, as I said, the first shift was mild. We didn't really take the complaints from the kids seriously. Then my friend arrived to work with us for the second shift, when the new kids arrived. And it all went to crap. Oh my God, I just want to scream typing this down, because the memories are still sharp and bright. Anyway, this friend of mine was a huge chunk more into all the paranormal stuff. I knew for sure his grandma was a weird woman. She always knew when to stay calm and what people were gonna do up front. Like she was told ahead of her interactions during the day. She was always ahead of people. We were neighbors, by the way, so I remember her from a small age up to about 15 or 16. She died later, sadly, so this friend of mine probably was educated by his grandma on how to use tarot. He was good, like damn good. I will not get into details, but he could tell quite a few things about people he just met and their family, just by throwing a few tarot cards on the table. The day this friend of mine arrived and we used the cards for fun, it all started. I believe that he was like throwing fuel to the fire. He always gathered people around him, and kids loved him. Extremely strong energy. Even now he has a very warm aura, though he's not practicing anything for years already after this story. It started small. We were woken up on the first night from a bloody scream in the middle of the house, with the smallest groups. Immediately we run outside to the kids, and after a few minutes of calming them, they said that someone was hitting the windows. All of them. We're talking about maybe 10 or 12 rooms next to each other and the same amount of windows. Around 3 or 4 of them had broken glass in the corner, and we couldn't understand how someone could hit all those windows at the same time, shattered some of the glass and managed to run away without us noticing it. It was either over 10 people involved, otherwise it was physically impossible. Because we were outside in 10 seconds or even less, the building is at least 30 to 40 meters long, and there's a huge fence right next to it, so even if it was a few people, we would see them. We calmed the kids down and went back to sleep, thinking we will deal with it in the morning. The morning wasn't better at all. We got shaken by screaming again. The girls took the younger groups out to do the morning exercises with them, and out of nowhere, an approximately 3 or 4 meter long snake started to hunt them around the garden. It was damn aggressive and huge. When I say huge, I mean it was huge, as I said, 2 or 3 times as long as an average person, and it was enormous. So we, the guys, together with the head of the camp, running around shocked, because in 25 years of management, they never saw anything like that. Later they told us that even the most dangerous animals are too afraid to get close due to the huge amount of people. The decision was made on the spot to get rid of the snake because it was refusing to calm down and was trying to attack the kids. Only the small ones. It didn't give a flying hoot about us grown-ups. We got some strong sticks and started to hunt the snake. Finally we managed to pin it down and it suddenly just died. We were holding it down. The plan was to put it in a van and release it at the top of the mountain. But the snake died, probably from stress. What we did next is low. I regret it now, but when I was 18, it sounded like a badass idea. So we decided to skin the snake, and put the skin on the pole we had with the flag of our group, to encourage kids to be brave and not be afraid of the forest. I still believe that's when the gates of hell opened. We made someone or something so angry. I can't even describe it. The very moment, probably a week later, when the first group of kids went home, and we were waiting for the new kids. Due to it being the second day of the new shift, basically all kids got their stuff to the buildings. But we had an extra night before they would move in, so after spending the day in preparations and helping parents move the bags in, we decided to go to the girls' dorm, where the other girls who worked there resided, to have some drinks and fun, some music, etc. This friend of mine was really exhausted, so he went to his bed in our dorm room with another guy. They were cutting wood most of the day, so we could understand that they're tired. For context, the window of the room in which we were partying was looking straight at the boys' dorm. There was no way the guys could come outside without us noticing them. There were also automatic lights above the door, so we immediately would notice the lights going off. Also, don't forget, we were in the mountains. No signal on the phones or internet is inaccessible. There's no signal. It started approximately half an hour after the two guys left. First, we heard someone using the toilet at the end of the corridor. We looked at each other with curiosity. Nobody but us should be in the building. Everyone is in the room. The guys are in another building, and they cannot come to us without us noticing it. Plus, they would have to knock on the window or the main door, because we were locking all doors at all times with the key. That's important. It was part of our job to make sure all doors locked with a key after the sun is down, with or without kids. The dorms have to be locked. So, we got a bit tense. We didn't hear anything for about 5 minutes and then went back to chatting. 10 minutes passed and the girls literally screamed when someone very fast knocked on the door to the room. Then tried to push down the handle. I jumped to the door literally 5 seconds later and fell on my butt. When there was nobody. We ran out to the corridor, check all the rooms, nothing. Windows locked, door locked on key, the key is with us in the room. This was the moment when we started taking it seriously. We sat for a minute thinking about what just happened, and there was absolute silence in the room. 4 girls and me with another guy. Then the silence got abruptly disturbed by a knock on the window, just one. Heavy, like someone slapped his palm on the window and left it there. I immediately jumped there, waiting to see one of the guys, thinking we missed them coming outside because we were busy checking the rooms. But there wasn't anyone. Anyway, I got very uncomfortable, feeling that someone is watching me. From outside, I could see the whole garden in the middle, the forest to the right over the fence. If I really pushed my face to the window, I could even see the door handle to the building we've been in. But no living person. I gave a voice to my concerns about being watched, and one of the girls came next to me to look outside. That was the moment I almost got deaf. She started screaming, "Who are those people?" at the top of her lungs. We calmed her down as much as we could, and asked her to tell us what she saw. She said there's a lot of people standing outside the building, all of them looking at us. But she cannot see the faces because it was around midnight at that point and really dark. She said she could see their heads turn in our direction, and they're just standing. I asked her to count them, but every time she reached around 20 to 25, she started crying and having a meltdown from fear. She said there's at least 50 of them outside. While none of us could see anyone. She did. Remember how someone knocked on the door of the room, and we couldn't find anything in the building? Checked all the doors and windows. Well, suddenly the entrance door that was checked 15 minutes ago was made sure by 6 people that it was locked with a key, and the key was in the room with us on the counter, started erratically, with crazy aggression, opening, closing, open, close. Someone was opening a wide door that was locked with a key and slamming it with such power that it was shaking the whole building. At this point, even I was screaming. After approximately a minute of suffering from this unexplained thing, me and the other guy holding each other's shoulders and running to the entrance to see what was happening there. The sounds stopped the moment we got to the door to go there, and you probably guessed already, the door was locked, with a key, and the 2 of us couldn't force it open. We were in shock, to say the least. This was the moment when we decided to seek help from outside. We had 2 more people in the face of my friend and the other guy who were sleeping in the dorm across the garden, 30 to 50 meters at most. We had signal, very weak, but it was enough to try to call over and over my friend. In our head, he was the most experienced with this world, and we had the hope that he would know what to do. We called probably 30 times in an hour, no answer. In the meantime, the people that the girls saw were still outside, according to her, and she was seriously freaking out with the other girls while we tried to reach my friend. We couldn't reach him. Eventually, after another 20 minutes, she said she sees them walking away into the forest, just going through the fence like it's not even there. Even for us grown-ups, it was hard to climb that fence. It was really high, and she said they just went through it. Now the fun part. In the morning, when the sun came up, we finally got brave enough to go outside and get my buddy. He told us a crazy story of his own. Apparently, he got up to have some water around 1 in the morning, looked outside the window to check if we were still up, and saw me in the window waving to him and showing a thumbs up. This never happened. Also, he would see the calls, but he never received one. Then he said he went back to sleep, just to wake up 30 minutes later from something. He said he sat up in his bed, looked out the window, and saw his grandma on the other side. She told him to go back to sleep because he cannot go outside now, and his friends are gonna be fine. She will look after them. He thought it's a dream, and just went back to sleep. That was approximately the time when the girls said they started to walk away to the forest. Also, the phone of my buddy was found in the morning in the middle of the garden, while he never left the room and was checking his phone when he woke up the first time, so he had it. Also, he said he had a strong desire to come to us when he got up at first, but he saw me in the window, my thumbs up, and decided to stay, believing we're fine. When we put together the stories in the morning, we got our first white strands of hair. My friend said we have to apologize, so the next night, me and him meet up in the forest. He made a small fire. We burned some herbs and loudly apologized to anything we disturbed by our actions. After that, nothing really happened. Some shadows in the forest here and there, some weird sounds in the night, but nothing like before. One of the girls managed to shoot a picture of something white passing in front of one of the windows on Polaroid, but sadly, after our work ended, we didn't keep contact, so can't provide the photos. Maybe my friend is still in contact with her and I can retrieve them, if she still has it. I tried my best to draw a layout of the camp, to give you a better picture of what happened. 5. I began having many lucid dreams and started noticing a pattern. The same person would appear in most of them, someone I have never seen in real life. The other people in my dreams varied between those I knew from my life and complete strangers, and they always wore different clothes. However, this particular person, who appeared in both my lucid and non-lucid dreams, always wore the same black jeans and grey hoodie. Every time I wake up from a lucid dream, I write it down in a notebook. When I started noticing that this person was always present, I waited for another lucid dream so I could speak to him, as I was very intrigued. Although he was more of a background character, he was always there. In the first lucid dream, after realizing his constant presence, I was in a classroom. I approached him. He was a Latino guy, and I asked him what his name was. He looked at me and replied that his name was Gabriel. I'll never forget his brown eyes, which reflected a deep sadness and nostalgia. His voice was somewhat effeminate, but soft and monotone. After he told me his name, I fell into another different dream. In another lucid dream, where I was at a restaurant celebrating my wife's birthday, I saw him again. That's when I was able to get more information from him. I said hello, and he looked surprised to hear me, giving me a look that seemed to say this shouldn't be happening. He made a small smirk that almost turned into a smile, but everything about him radiated sadness and nostalgia. He told me he was 30 years old, although he looked much younger, almost like a teenager. In the following dreams, we talked about many things, and I began to feel like I was forming a friendship with someone who only appeared in my dreams. The strange thing was that he would tell me things, give me advice, and talk about topics I knew nothing about. But later, after waking up and searching online, I found out they were real. For example, he told me that his favorite song was Sin una ilusión by Moby Dick. I don't speak Spanish, but I managed to find the song, and it actually exists in real life. I had never heard of that band or song before, and the same happened with several other things. The last time I saw him, I was telling him about the problems I was having at work, and he mentioned that he would probably be reassigned. I didn't pay much attention because I was too overwhelmed by my own work issues. Before I woke up, he said, "Don't worry about your job, everything will be fine." He touched my shoulder and looked at me with those same sad eyes I had seen the first time we talked. He made a grimace that seemed like an attempt at a smile, and then I woke up. In each lucid dream, I gathered more information, piecing together Gabriel's story. He has never been very specific about his life, family, personal information, but I came to the conclusion that he may have took his own life due to his sexual orientation and became trapped, condemned to live in the dreams of others. It's been more than 2 years since the last time he appeared in my dreams, and I never shared this story before, hoping that by keeping it a secret, I would see him again. But here I am, sharing it all with you. I have never known his last name, so I couldn't find his grave to leave flowers. I also don't know what era he lived or died in. All I have are the memories of him from my dreams. For you, Gabrielle, I hope that wherever you are, you find peace. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Paranormal Stories 398. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. As little as $1 a month helps out a lot. Okay, no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is this song that you just, not necessarily your favorite, but you just can't get it out of your head at the moment? For me, it's a song from a musical. It's actually called Fright of Their Lives. Now, thankfully, I like most of the songs in this musical, so that's not a problem, and it's from Beetlejuice the Musical, because I've been somewhat obsessed with that lately. For a while it was Rent, but now it's Beetlejuice the Musical. So, that's mine. Let me know what yours is in a comment below. And before I go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And this one's from Paranormal Stories 396 and was about weird encounters with people coming to your home. Because I think as I was doing that video, or just before I did that video, I had a guy come to the door asking if my drains had a problem, which I don't think they did, but he cleaned them anyway. Thankfully, this sort of maintenance is something that the local authority, the local council whom I rent from, take care of. So it didn't cost me anything, so I figure if he wanted to do it, may as well let him do it. And today's answer comes from Paranormal Stories 396 and is from Grey Warden Invasion. I did have a short ringing at my door in the middle of the night, probably around 11 p.m. Maybe midnight. I looked out of the peephole and only kind of saw a sleeve at the edge of the doorframe, and I think there was also a slight scraping at the door. I knew I had already locked the door, but just in case I locked it a second time. For a while I heard nothing. When I finally had the courage to check the peephole again, I just saw some guy walking towards the staircase. Can't say, though, if that was the one who had been at my door or just a random resident of the apartment complex, but at least there was no one at my door anymore. Now, it could have been something harmless, just a random neighbor getting home drunk or something, trying to open the wrong apartment and then wandering off again when realizing their mistake. However, the way they were standing next to the door, just out of sight from the peephole, seemed too deliberate. And thank you very much for your answer, Grey Warden. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.